Are you serious? Just 1 second here. Mike, hang on. Folks, I believe we have with us Mike from around the world. How you doing, Mike? Uh-oh. Is Mike there?
Yeah.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, give me a little more volume there, Israel, for me. And as everybody else can hear you, I think. Mike, how we doing tonight?
Good. Now, hopefully somebody is checking out the closed caption on your video on YouTube. It is weird.
Oh, I see it on there. And you know what? I've never had the closed caption during a live broadcast.
Yeah, some of that is that's something else. Anyway.
Are you saying that some of the stuff they're saying there is not what I'm actually saying?
Well, just keep looking at it. You'll see it.
Oh,
you'll see it yourself.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, the Illuminati. Let's see if they can spell it. Illuminati. We'll find out. Mike, you were with us last Thursday night. It was a great broadcast. And we talked about the Canary Islands. You know, we knew it was rumbling underneath it. It looked dangerous. All of that, and you know, and this thing hadn't exploded in 50 years. And you made a statement. You said, you know what, if the Canary Island erupts, look for, the magma will move, and look for some volcanic eruptions in Italy. And I got a ton of email from people saying, what's Mike talking about? Italy ain't got nothing to do with this. Because they were thinking about the tsunami, I think, going all the way to the east coast of America, that could happen. But how did you know, or what is it you understood that Italy would, Mount Stromboli and Mount Etna would erupt?
Well, first of all, there's conventional thinking, right? Scientific conventional thinking. A lot of people trust that, unfortunately. The scale of the Earth, the construction of the Earth is not well known. It's just not well known. Maps do not reveal it. Some of the fault lines that they've recorded on some of the maps on the internet, they're missing about 200 or 300 fault lines. There are so many things that are not presented to the public, and so one of my ambitions and goals is to somehow help to define that for folks so they get a real picture of what's going on. Their lava tube, this Earth, by the way, is one solid shell, right? It's one complete solid shell. Underneath that shell is magma. Everything is sitting on top of magma everywhere. This magma has flow tubes going all over the place. They are interconnected. And one of the ways these are really mapped out is because a long time ago in World War II, when HAARP was developed, and they began to get a global picture of everything with HAARP over the face of the planet, through reflected infrared, they had a real-time map of the planet. Was one of the first objectives of the HAARP system globally. They began to look at the surface of the Earth through HAARP, which evolved, right, into some other satellite-based optics. They began to plot transit system underneath the ocean and other places. I know it's hard for people to believe, but we're at that time where it's just, we're too late in the game for all the speculation scoffing. Anyway, so they have these transit tubes going all over the Earth. Well, they plotted those away from magma tubes, right? You can't have a transit system close to a magma tube.
No.
They used up a lot of carbon-based steel to make these things a long, long time ago. Very tightly packed materials. They use very special materials. And so these lava tubes had to be mapped. Well, if anybody ever get involved with anything dealing with space, not Space Command, but anything with space as far as how those optics can be improved, looking at the Earth, so on and so forth, you begin to learn about the optics and the images and the imagery and everything else of what they can see on the surface of the Earth. So that technology reveals a lot of interconnections between, each continent that we know. But in fact, the Earth is one big solid shell, right? It's all interconnected. The only volcanoes that are mapped are the ones that people see on the volcano map that is sanctioned by NOAA and all these other guys. But they're missing at least 500 more volcanoes, very ancient ones in the oceans and big ones. And Italy happens to be one of the trigger points. Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, is a very bad place. Listen, I'm going to tell everybody something right now. The Gulf of Mexico is guarded, right? You're not going to go out to the Gulf of Mexico and go and do surveys in the Gulf of Mexico because it's guarded. There's no military out there. What you have is what? You have oil rigs.
Yes, oil.
And wherever an oil rig is, it is highly secured, and that is claimed land. It's like a national preserve in the ocean, right?
Yeah, yes.
So you just can't go out there and start exploring because you intrude and invade in activities where no civilian can get around. That's one way they can guard things without no one knowing a thing, right? So the Gulf of Mexico is, there's a monster sitting down there, right? A monster. And one of the tactics is, how do you monitor something in the face of all the public and the public never pick it up? Well, you do that through academia, number one, right? But if you don't speak about it, it does not exist in the minds of many. So even last week, we were talking about these volcanic eruptions. And then the other night, I was telling everybody on COT about a pulse that was coming through in the early AM hours when everything started to erupt. That the night before, right, I told them early AM a pulse is coming through. We'll see what it does. It was a baby pulse. And all this stuff happened, right, that morning and throughout that day. So because we're getting 30 more beginning Tuesday of this week.
No! Wait, whoa. Okay, wait. You're saying that Sunday morning when the Canary Islands went off, and kept going all day and kept for a few days, and then we get Etna and Stromboli and all that. You're saying that you told the people a pulse is coming, so let's wait and see what it does. You're telling me come this Tuesday we got 30 more pulses?
Yeah. And when the last baby pulse came through, it was a lot of geo activity on the Earth because I wasn't sure what it was going to do. I don't think anybody was sure because these are called red band pulses. Now, that's not a referenceable word because that's an inside community tracking these things. These are red band pulses, meaning unlike the other pulses, these are a bit more concentrated because we're closer to the source. But yeah, we got about 30 more coming through beginning Tuesday. And this was, when we're speaking about magnitude, this was about anywhere from 500 to about 2,500 times smaller than what's coming in. And of course, as they get closer, those measurements, they alter, they change, they become more precise.
Is this, Mike, is this the 5 waves of energy, these pulses?
Part of it, but you know what? These 5 waves have turned into, it's very difficult to see back then, the true scope of what we were dealing with, because as we change in our movements, we're able to see the top or the origination of these things, and come to find out, one of the ways we were that was spotted out there was not one, but it was a lot of pulses coming out. So that's just trouble. It's just one more element that we have to deal with of something coming through that people have a hard time referencing. The average person. But if we trust too much of what they print on the internet, and it kind of throws people off sometimes.
So 30 coming Tuesday.
They start. That's when they begin.
When they start.
We have 30 more coming in. That's when they begin. Okay. And I'm trying to, like I told everybody, when around sometime next week, I'm going to develop a plot for estimation just to see the other ones, because I'm curious to see what the effects are, what the impact is, what the impact on human health is, so on and so forth. So,
Mike, I don't want to ask you. We keep very confidential. I've never told never shared your name to anyone, and you know that. No matter how many times people have tried it, I've never disclosed anything. Is this part of what you do, or is this something beyond what you do to get a chance to be able to see about these waves of energy? Just a question.
Well, the waves is something. Well, it originated. The know-how came from things I do, right?
Okay.
But the actual spotting of them, all that is a private venture. It's a very private venture.
Okay.
But it's proving to be quite quite accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you anticipate, Tuesday we got a pulse coming, so do you anticipate more volcanic eruptions? We've had, it's funny because, the sun, I'm going to say this, a month ago, I read a report and I shared it, and it ended up making a lot of news, especially in the UK. And they called me the wacky preacher who prophesied that if we ever have 7 volcanoes, major volcanoes go off, it could be the end of the world. Well, we've had 7 pretty good sized ones this last week since Thursday. No, it's a sign that we're in the end times. But are you anticipating major, more volcanic activity in the next, let's say, year if time lasts?
Oh, well, let's just shrink that down to the next 2 months. Here's what I'm looking at right now. In South America, there's a chain of volcanoes I'm expecting to really let loose, okay? Mexico is about to become extremely active, you could say. Madagascar is going to be an issue area, bad issue area. That will be in conjunction with north of Australia when you're in Papua New Guinea and all those places. Yep. There's a chain of very unstable conditions underneath the ocean. See, you got to take this into account, Pascal, too. Underneath the oceans, I mean, it's just lit up underneath the oceans. Okay, it is lit up. If people could see the ocean floor and what was going on, everybody would be on their knees. But the ocean obscures, it hides a lot of what the activity that goes on the earth. Most of the volcanoes that we have, by the way, are in the ocean, believe it or not. Most of the tectonic shifting that takes place every single day is in the oceans. Now, water acts as a cushion, all right? Just like when water evacuates from land masses, you have these giant, 20-mile sinkholes forming, like in California right now. These volcanoes are going to become extremely active. This because every time we have an influx of radiation, it hits to our north or south, in which case we're safe, right? The Earth absorbs it, pumps it back out to the Van Allen belts, right? So we have a shield within a shield. But with these pulses and galactic cosmic rays only amplifying these pulses, we have an issue because they're not going to the North or South Pole. They're not polarized to be absorbed by the Earth. For example, if the sun sent out a flare, if that flare is polarized in the right direction, no effect. It could be a giant one, no effect, no Carrington event. You could have a small CME, and it could be the opposite polarity of the magnetic field and wipe out our electronics on the surface of the Earth. It does not take a large flare. It does not take a big CME to wipe us out. It's all contingent upon polarity. If the polarity is wrong, the Earth cannot absorb it, period. So if the polarity of the sun's emissions begin to change, that's when we're in trouble. Otherwise, the Earth can absorb it or deflect it. But even NOAA watches out for this. Whenever the sun becomes active, they have their whole crew is on standby to pick up the polarity of it, because they have to warn aircraft, they have to warn everybody in the oceans and on the ground, they have to warn all the guys that move the satellites in emergency conditions, they have to warn the ISS. So the Carrington event, when it struck, it wasn't so much the magnitude of it. It was the opposite polarity of our magnetic shielding, and then kafoof, it just overwhelmed it. That can happen with a small. In fact, that can happen, Pastor Paul, with just standard solar winds. Yeah, that can really happen.
So this evening we just had a M class, M2 and an M3 class solar flares off the sun. You're saying it doesn't have to be an X class. It doesn't have to be a
No, it does
plasma
not.
burst. It could.
Nope.
It all depends on the conditions of the Earth. And
The polarity.
The polarity.
Negative and positive. Just
Yeah.
think negative and it's like taking a car battery, right?
Yeah.
And if you take another car battery and you hook them up in parallel, positive to positive, negative to negative, it's going to overwhelm one or the other and kapooey, right?
Yeah.
But if you run that same battery through a circuit, say that circuit is the Earth, the Earth will absorb all the power going into it. But if you hook it up wrong, kapooey, you're messed up, right? It's going to run right from one side to the other. You have short circuiting. And this is what the Earth can take, because when this happens, the surface of the Earth absorbs all that power. Well, the surface of the Earth can't do that. That's where we have all our stuff. If it's the right polarity, it just simply goes through the Earth. It's redirected to our poles. The Earth can absorb it, and it cranks out that excess radiation, and that becomes our Van Allen belts. That's how it works. So one of the first things they check for when there's a CME flare or something like that on the sun is they check for polarity. They have to, because they only have so many minutes before they have to go out and start doing things.
So let's talk a little bit about Mike, and we're going to go to the armies of the Antichrist here in a minute, and the peace deal that they're working on, this announcement.
Oh boy.
Yeah. One last thing here about the Jupiter collision. That was on that little file. We did that conference in 2019. It was called Jupiter Collision 2021. It happened apparently. That means the timing of this incoming meteor storm is on schedule. Is that right, or is it faster than we think?
Well, it's going to be a bit more enhanced than any of us thought, because, for example, in December of this year, it's a known. It could be a bad story. It could be a bad winter. December of this year, it could be a pretty bad winter.
Story. I mean, okay, is that because
it could be a bad one?
Okay,
Well,
we could get hit.
Fastball, we have too many loose tracks out there. There are too many loose tracks, and be honest with you, when they like near Earth impacting objects that could potentially hit the Earth, they only track those objects. Number one, that they can see. They cannot see anything that's coming sun facing unless they have tracked the orbit, in which case they have found that at least 26% of those objects that have been mapped have changed. Their orbits have changed. They're not the same anymore. So
why?
But then the facing objects only account for about, I think right now it's 2.3% of what's out there, right? So what they have on the internet, and JPL's whole Java application that feeds people all these near-Earth objects is about 2.3% of what's actually out there. They can't see the rest. It's too expansive. It's moving too quick, and they have not devoted publicly. They have not devoted the money to track all these, to report it to the public. They're not going to report all of what's out there to the public. People would be frightened right now, because every single day since this year began, every single day, well, I'll say this, every other day, there's been a near miss with the Earth. Every other day, there's been a near miss, right? This is every other day. And that frequency is going to increase, but this time, they're not going to be near misses. It's a little too compact. It's almost like a trash cloud that we're about to go through, and it's just, you can't dodge all that stuff. Now, we of course, our Jupiter itself plays a big role in this, because if its gravitational pull is strong enough, if it can stop acting funny, it will divert quite a few objects away from Earth. It is a gatekeeper, right? That's what Jupiter is, a gatekeeper. Okay. If Jupiter ever changes any of its properties, Pastor Paul, it's like opening a gate with a bunch of balls coming right to the Earth, right? If it ever alters its own properties, if its magnetic influence changes, if the electrical properties change, if all this stuff changes, it will not pull objects away from the inner solar system. And it seems like that's Jupiter's job, to go, it's like a vacuum. And it redirects all these bad inbound objects that could really, hurt us. It redirects them. But I'll tell you something. Something is happening to Jupiter. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody, and I'm starting to understand why they keep, well, let's just say we have monsters in our own solar system, and all they have to do is be turned on. They're already here. They're right here in our solar system. If they're turned on, they're going to mess us up. Period. Mercury is going to be one of those. But, if these things turn on, that's just like Jupiter has increased in its temperature at least 1,000 degrees in certain areas.
What?
Some of the cloud formations have altered so much. They're altering too fast. And what I mean by that, you can observe Jupiter one day and it looks one way. You observe it a month later and it's totally altered. And you're saying, well, what's happening? That means the wind speeds have increased tremendously to change all that. Jupiter constantly has impacts, all right? Constantly.
Yeah.
They only tell people about the ones that they can observe.
That are so big that
they actually show, but it's constantly changing orbits of things, and it's constantly having, impacts. But I'm telling you, the properties of Jupiter are changing fast. They're changing fast.
All right, folks. Mike from Around the World's with us tonight. Wow, I want to welcome all 8,300 or so. Guys, look, we're in end times, and we need to know about these things that are happening in the heavens and on the earth. And we're going to switch gears a little bit here, Mike, and start to talk about the armies of the Antichrist. Now, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, did a virtual conference. And we're just finding out that this conference included everyone who signed the Abraham Accords that President Trump did, and which is the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, and Kosovo. Also, Egypt and Jordan, who had already signed peace accords. Egypt did that under Jimmy Carter back in 1979, 1980. And Bill Clinton pulled the one together called the Peace Accords with Jordan in 1994. So all of those nations got in on a virtual conference call with Anthony Blinken of the United States and the Israelis. And they talk about how they can now enhance this partnership. I was very interested in that because I know Biden wants a two-state solution, and I know Naftali doesn't. But I actually thought maybe this arrangement would get tore apart by you notice Joe Biden has canceled everything Trump has done except he's not moving that embassy out of Jerusalem, and he's going forward with his peace accord. Is it because it's a biblical thing that God's in control of? Do you see, okay, that's the guys talking peace with Israel. But over here, there's Iran. There's the Euphrates River route. There's Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, China, Russia. So are we watching the armies of the Antichrist form?
Well, Pastor, I'll tell you what, that's you really want the answer?
I do. I really want to know.
Okay, I can give you my opinion. Okay. I don't have the answer, of course.
Okay,
the Lord does, but here's what I believe. Something really big happened Tuesday and Wednesday. Huge, something huge. And it really goes along with Blinken. It really goes along with Israel. It goes along with the UN's meetings. All of it's connected. One of the changes in the atmosphere is moving forward. It's an understatement. These guys are forging and solidifying and welding all the pieces of a powerful alliance. You may not, nobody may know this, I don't know, it's kind of skipped people's minds, but it was a big point to me in prophecy. It was just big in prophecy. Here's what happened, Pastor Paul. Iran's foreign minister has been hopping all over the place. This guy's been speaking on behalf of Iran itself. This guy met with Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, France, and the European Union, the Arab League, and the Gulf Cooperation Council, right?
Okay.
He's talking to them. And what he did was, he's talked to them several times since then. Do you not know that Iran and Saudi Arabia are mending their ties that broke in 2016?
What?
So I want you to, that's the first thing. But he also spoke with Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, France. We're talking, listen, I'm telling you that Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran and Kuwait, Iran and Qatar, Iran and Egypt, Iran and Jordan, Iran and Turkey, Iran and France, Iran and the European Union, Iran and the Arab League and the Gulf Cooperation Council are coming in league together.
Is Israel involved in any of those?
No, Israel's not involved. Israel's not involved. And so you're looking at the entire, just about because the Middle East is what? Egypt, Syria, Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel. That's what the Middle East is. But you have a big section of these guys. They're holding hands, they're talking. They're about to trade some money, but they're about to link their forces. It's some real cutthroat things happening. And what the U.S. is doing, when the U.S. was talking to Israel, it was almost like I hate to say this, but almost like a stall tactic, so that the other nations would be free to discuss what they have discussed. And when you have Iran and Iraq, Iraq is brokering this thing. You know, this is major because my mind snapped to Daniel 31. Before anybody's introduced in the book of, according to the stream in the book of Daniel, before anybody knows who the Antichrist is, he goes out and creates this alliance with all who have hatred against Israel. And they successfully create this bond. And then collectively, it says, they go in and take away the daily sacrifice and place the abomination that make it desolate.
Yes.
That's Daniel 31. Yep. That's the introduction of the Antichrist himself.
Yep.
During that time. So if you have the armies have to form first, and then when this guy's introduced when he says, I did it, right? So you have all these nations forming. Well, I just can't believe it because Saudi Arabia had an internal vow that they would never do it. But here you have this Mir guy, not Mir, I'm sorry. You have this guy going all over the place. This guy he's doing things that nobody else could really do.
So the scripture,
right?
the scripture, Mike, the scripture, Mike, that you're referring to is Daniel chapter 11, verse 31.
11:31, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
11:31.
And here's what it says, folks: "And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate." That is when that Antichrist walks in there and actually they put an end to the worship that goes on in the Temple Mount, and they literally commit the abomination of desolation. They probably sacrifice a pig on the mercy seat, whatever they may do. But and it goes on to say, "And such as do wickedly against the covenant," that's the covenant of God, "shall he corrupt by flatteries. Yep. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits." This is a big deal, Mike, and this is what you're saying. You're saying, Mike, that this Iranian foreign minister's running around and everybody's got their ear to this guy. And nobody's...
Yeah, this guy's, you've just not seen Iran do, any representative from Iran do this before.
No, right? I haven't. No, we haven't.
I haven't seen it.
No.
And when they all got together and they began to talk, that was one thing. But when they continued, and when people began to reach out to Iran, with something is moving here, something is brewing. And before, this. I often inspect the foundations of many things in the world, especially tactically, right?
Right.
And what this is a solid. This is the beginning of a big coalition in the Middle East, one that is rare, or no one really suspected.
It's never happened
that it would
before.
go this route.
It's
But
never
it's
happened before. Right.
It's not really, that's something you don't think about. That's something nobody ever includes in their plans, because they're like, no, this isn't going to happen. And what's so amazing is you don't hear any of that. You just don't hear this. This is something huge. This is huge.
This is not in the news, Mike. This is breaking news tonight. Nowhere in the mainstream media, anywhere, is what you're saying, the circuit that this guy's running. I mean, it might be leaked that he's over here, or maybe that he's over there, but nobody's putting the pieces together here. I think you're breaking some ground here, and I think that what's happening is it's real scary. Well, I don't mean scared for us, but if you weren't saved, I don't think people know how close we are to the door here of eternity, are we?
No, they don't. Now, I'll tell you something else. Our government is changing. The government here, the government in the EU, the governments all over the world are changing. And what they're doing is, I can see it ever so clearly, Pastor Paul, the Christians are strong, right?
Yeah.
We're stationary. We're becoming stronger. In fact, there's a separation going on between the Christians and this element of darkness that's in just about every single government. But the governments are handing over, it seems like they're handing over their sovereignty to a Middle Eastern type of ideology that just shouldn't be. That's what it seems like. It's just right before our faces.
We just watched our own nation hand the keys to the Taliban. Literally, we did. I mean, we left them $80 billion worth of equipment. And we let them screen who got to leave the country. This is insane. But we're not the only one doing this stuff. As you said,
no, we're not.
The Western world is surrendering the keys of the kingdom to the Middle East. Really? What's going on?
Something is. All these nations involved. Say France is defecting, so we can't even. They're turning their back. But you still have. The UK, Turkey is defecting. You still have Italy. Germany is split. You still have Canada, Poland, Greece, Norway, Czechs, Netherlands, Romania, Portugal, Denmark, all these places, right?
Right, yeah.
That belong to NATO. But it seems like even within NATO itself, with the exit of Afghanistan, you have animosity between these individuals, one toward the other. There is hate speech in the Western alliances that people are not aware of. Not to get political, but there's some infighting taking place that eventually is going to surface, and it's going to cause a massive instability in quite a few. This is why they're pushing collective agendas. Here's a psychological plan they have. If they can push globally some type of collective agenda that draws people together, that they can do something collectively together, they can alter that paradigm outside of what they are going to make everybody pay attention to. For example, everybody knows they finally met their deadline of changing all of the smart meters.
Yeah.
Right? All the power meters.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
All of this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, you know what this goes with. That mandate was pushed aside until, this year. This year, there was a mandate coming out to the power companies. If you don't get this in place, we're just going to have to shut you down under some, carbon tax penalty.
Whoa.
So they did it, right? They did it. But we're not the only country that did that. Here's what's happening. Everybody out there that's utilizing electricity with these smart meters, the power companies are charging people additional monies for carbon footprints right now. They're not going to wait for this. They're doing it right now. This collective money is drawing nations together in a whole other realm of mind. It's a different ideology they're doing here. It's a spooky ideology. So we have an element in place that's drawing people together, right? That's going to change the oil industry, the gas industry, the coal industry, every single industry out there, which is why gas prices are about to go right through the roof, because they're going to cram something into into our societies that shouldn't be there. But while they're doing this, and everybody's involved in this because they've set up meetings, they've set up global council meetings and everything else. They have 12 new groups to govern this, Pastor Paul. They have an international and global. Listen, everybody's involved. Even Iran. Iran's involved. Saudi Arabia is involved. Israel's, and everybody is involved in this.
Yep.
So the whole world being involved in taking care of the planet, they're going to draw everybody into a mindset. And while people are looking in that direction, predominantly consumed by that mindset, they're going to change the governmental structure on the outside.
So,
and you know what? But look, there's no resistance. There's zero resistance. Here's a mistake. You know, the Republican colleagues out there. Here's an issue. Here's what I take issue with. There comes a time when you can no longer talk. We've got to do. We just can't. You know, pointing a finger at what's broken is not going to fix it.
That's not going to fix it.
Somebody's got to get up and do it. Somebody's got to do it. I'm telling you right now, Pastor Paul, if they don't get up and make a stand for this, because the Democrats' ideology is to work in a different direction. It's going to take some opposing thoughts for the people to stand up and not don't campaign for president. Just go do the thing, right?
Yeah.
Go do it. Go do what you have to do. Because if they don't, Pastor Paul, they only have about a 1 or 2 month window, and it's gone. Their chance is gone. It's going to be gone.
So let me
because
ask
most of the paperwork is going to be solid 2 months from now.
They're going to sign a bunch of deals that's going to lock it in. You know, Israel Hall was on here earlier in the broadcast, and we talked about this global carbon tax, that there's a MasterCard that's coming out with a card. He was explaining that.
Yeah, they are.
That card will monitor. When you use the card, it knows what you just bought, and then it will know how much carbon it took to use it, and it starts coming off your carbon allowance.
Yep, they trend it. Everybody's been trended. They have a 4D it's called a 4D profile on everybody. And what that 4D profile is, every time you go into a store and buy something, right?
Yeah.
You're having your picture taken. Everything you buy is already being calculated, right?
Yeah.
So when they began to analyze all this data, and financial companies do it, credit card companies do it. They collect all this data, give it to the NSA. The NSA uses it. They don't really care what your name is. They're getting you by your habits. They trend your future. And right now with the AI interfaces that they have in place and some of the computer systems and some of these labs that they set up, they've already trended what direction humanity is going into. Listen, they have a probability that if they push in one area, they already know by this system where humanity is going to go. They already know that. Who do you think is out there that they're promoting this immoral type society that we live in through media, television, games, all these different things, and people are consuming this hook, line, and sinker. That's why you have these no gender individuals out there, right? And they're walking around. They can be anything. But you have a think tank who has fed all this information into a set of powerful systems that trend every speech that's coming out. I'm going to say that again, because I said this before, and I don't know if it's hard for people to believe or not, but when someone gives a speech that is pre-written, it is to move the public in a specific direction. They know what you're going to react to. They know this through social media. They know it through your cell phones. They know it through your little faces that you put on your comments. They know they will give you a subject to engage you, and it will take your mind off what they're really doing. And see, but it's that time is over for us. This engagement part, people are going to have to stand up, especially in the Christian community, and start developing their own standards. I'm just telling you right now, because the standards of the world are not working, and the Lord doesn't hear them anyway. He hears us.
Amen. Amen. So, Mike, as we're talking about these things, do you see, we talked a little bit about food shortages. You dropped a bomb on us last Thursday when you said, well, when you see the white government trailers going down the tracks, said government food, then you might want to take a look at that. Whoa! So, Mike, are you saying that the brands are going to go away, kind of?
Absolutely.
And we're going to
be replaced with one of those white bags with a stamp on it, like the rice that a lot of people are finding in several cities, like some of the soups that people are starting to find in several cities. like some of your basic commodities. That's what you like, the sugar that you see coming around, like the present deal that was made with it was a 13 sugar. I forgot what you call them. They're like assembly plants or something like that. They changed their packaging. In fact, a lot of other companies are on that list. At least several hundred companies are on that list to change their packaging. They're going to be restamped. They're going to be governed by a whole different system, right? And yeah, some changes are coming. This is why, I plead with people, change your diet, take seasons out of your food, so food will not bother your attitude going forward.
So in other words, because they're going to change, they're going to the carbon worship, the earth worship, instead of the Lord worship.
That's what it is. This Gaia nonsense.
Yeah,
that's what it
exactly.
Is.
And what that's going to
happen?
happen?
Gaia nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
It's nonsense. And what they'll do, they'll say, "Oh, this costs too much to make these spices. It creates too much carbon to do it. Just wipe that out. Get rid of. We don't need that. We don't need to do that. Let's just, we don't need a bunch of color in the package because it takes too much ink and carbon. So let's make it white label, stamped, pork and beans, and just put it on the shelf. And there's no more selection. They're going to take away our ability to choose. We can't. They're going to make us where we can't hardly choose anything.
Oh boy, Pastor Paul, that's that's already that's why Christians have to make their own choices. Listen. Christians are not handicapped. If I could tell every Christian something right now, it'd be this: stand up, stop looking to Uncle whoever to make your decisions for you. Stand up and do it yourself.
Right. Stand
up and do it yourself. It's just like a household can become a community, right? If we collectively get together and make it that way. The Lord gave us every single tool we need to stand up ourselves. He didn't put us down here to depend on anybody. He put us down here to intercede for those who are stuck in darkness. We have a job to do. We can't do it looking into darkness saying, feed me. So we have to stand up and make some decisions.
So now, if the world is going to be embracing this, well, obviously there's processing plants that's closed already. Farms can't raise enough feed to feed the livestock. So they're culling the livestock. They're dumping the milk.
Yep.
Okay. And the whole world has to be fed. And our population is growing. We're getting closer and closer to 8 billion.
Soy.
So we're going to be eating Spam and soy. I mean, what's Spam?
Pastor Paul, what the new? You know what? Can I bring in a point real quick?
Sure.
Speaking about soy, do you know that this is one for your wife Heidi?
Okay.
Most of the babies born today cannot drink milk.
Yeah,
they can't drink milk.
No.
Okay, so that means something on the DNA level has already taken effect.
Oh, you're saying,
so you
okay,
know.
whoa, time. So you're saying our molecular makeup, our DNA has been altered to where natural mother's milk, breast milk, or just milk.
It's not working.
It don't work anymore. Lactose
The
intolerant.
body won't accept it.
The babies are already lactose intolerant.
It'd be great if that were it, if they were lactose intolerant, but these babies can't have lactose, glucose. I mean, you name it, they can have all the coses are gone. These kids are different, right? They think differently too, and their brains respond to stimuli differently than ours does. And they do not have the same triggers that we have emotionally. And they do not. The brains are lit up in areas our brains are not.
So they're altering where
something has happened. It's already
they're rewiring.
Done.
Something's already happened. And it's
fastball's already done, right? It had to get us to get them. It's already done. Well, it's just like if
is it in the water?
The children we have, it did not touch, but the children they have, it has touched.
Is it in the water? I mean, whoa.
It's in everything. You know why? I'm just make this statement. We have trusted people too much. We don't go into a store. Here's I don't want to bring up the one V word, but here it is. Yep. We go into a store, we pick up a can of food, we don't question anything. in that can of food. We say, hey, that's at Kroger. Let me go get it and cook it. We don't question anything.
No.
We don't do it.
Yeah.
We trust the people that put it on the shelf and package it nicely, and we consume it. We didn't investigate. We trusted too much.
Yeah.
We only investigate those things that are controversial or something that we say is forced on us. I got news for everybody. The food was forced upon you because when you were hungry, you went to a fast food restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And they had to, they don't even know how they package that food. Somebody else did.
They don't even know if it's real food.
Why does the pharmaceutical companies make preservatives? Why do they make the ingredients that go into all the foods, right?
Yeah.
Why are they involved in making the degradable plastics that go around the food that they know degrade? Why do they make some of the pharmaceuticals have nothing to do with this stuff, but they're making it? See, when you start tracking back, you find out something, that individually some of these elements, they're inert. They won't do anything, but they know you're going to eat and consume things. So when you go and eat the food and use the products and all that, you become the laboratory.
Yeah.
So all the chemicals go on you and they activate. It's kind of like that sugar substitute that has aspartame in it, which, by the way, is embalming fluid.
That's
and
terrible.
It activates at body temperature. So there we are.
It's terrible. Okay, so the DNA has been altered. It took a period of time. It's addictive. It's addictive. The food's addictive. Okay, certain foods, certain restaurants, certain fast food places. You have to break yourself from it. Say no more, and drive by and wait 30 to 45 days and never touch it, to fully get it out of your system. The sugars, like you said, the food in general, and the GMOs and all the other stuff.
We called for.
Yeah, and there's other stuff that we can't even mention on this show.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
So, all right.
You know what? Thank God for Christ.
Yes.
You can't escape it.
No.
There's no one that can. Somebody said, well, I'm raising my own cows. Will that make a difference? No, it will not, unless you keep that cow out of the rain. Whatever the rain touches is done for. There are organisms in rainwater. You can test that yourself.
Is that what all that spraying
in the rainwater?
Is that why for the last 30 years they've been spraying? Is that to seed is that?
Well, that's the organisms, Pastor Paul, have increased. They have increased due to our habits down here. It's just like if you put stale water way inland, you're going to have mosquitoes, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna amplify a population of bugs that is normally not so condensed. But if you start spraying water all over the place, you have still water there, then mosquitoes can reproduce.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of them,
yeah.
right? So the same thing has happened. The exact same thing has happened. Our habits have inadvertently increased certain life forms that are automatically here. They're automatically here. And by the way, these life forms contain RNA.
Yes.
So there you go. There you go. And they just, they do other things. But thank God for Jesus Christ. Because I do know this. I've been exposed to some pretty nasty things.
Yeah.
I've taken more shots than a rhesus monkey in a laboratory.
Your career.
There are no adverse effects. Yeah. There are no adverse effects.
Okay, so what you're saying that what we got to do as Christians is we're going to have to trust in the blood of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And really believe it.
That's right.
And change your habits.
Armor, Pastor Paul.
And change habits.
We have the armor.
We have the armor.
And the Lord can raise the dead every day.
Yep.
So anything meant to kill us, right? I can tell you right now, things that are meant to kill most folks, it didn't work. It didn't work on the Christian, but it did work on the one who was rejective of kindness and compassion and all these things.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. They attract death to themselves.
Yeah, you're right. And, death and life are in the power of the tongue. How you treat other people will have a lot to do with your defense mechanisms against the spirit of darkness and all the tricks that he's got up his sleeve and the corruption of whether it be the food, the air, the water that we breathe. Mike, what you're doing is saying that we need to walk in the spirit of Christ. We need to be Christ-like. We need to actually care one for another, and that gives us actually divine protection through Jesus, doesn't it?
That's right. Pastor Paul, one more thing, Jesus, he walked through crowds of people that tried to kill him all the time.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
But listen, he walked through them. We can get up right now, and anything meant to kill us. Listen, so long as our walk is behind Christ, we're on the mission for the gospel of Jesus Christ, we are made to walk through all of it. All of it. But our mission has to be right. Our mission has to be right. Because Satan is doing his mission. We got to get up and do ours.
So
we're unstoppable when we're following Christ.
Amen.
But if we follow our own path, that's when we stumble and fall.
Mike, what else? You going to drop another bomb just before you go? Is there anything we're going to need to talk about maybe next week?
Well, Pastor Paul, with the geological activity, I can't help but to listen. The Mexico, right? That whole chain of Mexico down to Peru and Chile is a trigger point. That's why I watch it. So Pastor Paul, Peru and Chile go. If they have a major earthquake, it's going to weaken California, and you're going to see, people are going to see at least a city-sized sinkhole, a dip in the earth, right? They're going to see it abruptly happen before some of the lifting and changes of the landmass. So right now I'm watching for some more eruptions in Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Alaska's very important. Between Alaska and the Sandwich Islands, right?
Yeah.
Those two areas, it's almost like a seesaw, Pastor Paul.
That's half the world.
It's like a seesaw.
That's half the world.
It's just like a seesaw. You remember how they went back and forth?
Yeah, but I mean, that's like, I remember when that happened. Earthquake here, then there, then here. Then,
since that has happened, more lava tubes have opened up, right? We have more breaches in the ocean.
Okay.
But it seems like we're about to have more breaches in South America, right? So that being the case, with these external disturbances coming in beginning Tuesday, I would say we're going to have a geologically active week. And it could be, one of those could be a major, one of those major geological events. Right?
You think a big earthquake could happen in the next week?
Or volcanic eruption.
Or
in fact,
are you worried about, and I'm going to ask you, are you worried about the Canary Island? I mean, look, there's 9 vents in this thing. Is that mountain going to blow? Could there be a tsunami in the next week? Running right at America.
There really could be. There could be. And worse than that. If Italy keeps igniting, right, some coastal places in Italy can really, they're going to really be hit hard if that happens, because that's a huge, they don't even talk about the giant super volcanoes we have on Earth. They're still talking about Yellowstone is an embryo compared to these volcanoes.
What?
Right? So you're looking, if one of these things starts to, one of them is active. I can't mention the one that's active. I'll tell you this. One of the giants is active here on Earth. It's active right now. And I'm sure that other ones are going to become active as well. So this geological activity is really going to it's going to begin to take its toll. So everybody ought to watch out for mega sinkholes. I'm going to call them mega sinkholes. We're not talking about something the size of 5 city blocks. We're talking about something that can, kind of mess up the whole city. When everybody wakes up and, they slide out of their bed and roll out of their front door because their house foundation is crooked. One of those type deals. That I do expect to happen. Pastor Paul, a lot of the water is evacuated out of areas it shouldn't be evacuated out of. The water is leaving. It's just leaving.
So, are we on the right side? Are we on the right hemisphere here, Mike? I mean, a super volcano that's active. Are we on the right one or
northern hemisphere? The northern hemisphere? I don't think so. Here's I think, Pastor Paul. I think the northern hemisphere. I know people have their opinions. This is mine.
Okay.
I think the northern hemisphere is going to become so toxic that people are just going to have to. Those left are going to have to run away from it somehow. That's what I believe. It's going to become that toxic. I was thinking about that one day, and I said, Lord, what about the people in Israel? How can something like that happen? But they were, while Israel was under siege, God took his chosen ones, and he hid them within himself. He had them leave that place for a little bit.
Yeah.
When the trampling of the foot happens. He had all the rebellious ones stay. And they get trampled underfoot, but all of God's people make it out. Not one is lost. And then they will reconstitute some things. I believe we call that the Jewish revival.
Interesting, Mike. And with that, we'll see you next Thursday night, Mike, Lord willing.
Lord willing, I'll be here.
Okay. God bless you. Thank you, brother, so much. I really, really appreciate it. Really, we do.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
Amen. Mike from the world, folks.